Okay, looks like we're live. Uh, Excited today to have Infosec Pat joining. So, for those you don't know of Infosec Pat, he's a content creator, and one of the things I've done with the new podcast is have an emphasis on brand building and having people on to talk about content creation because that's kind of an area that's a good one to take advantage of for you know, uh, getting jobs in infosec, building a brand. It used to not be that important, but it's became hugely important. And there's a lot of people that have built their careers out of content creation. So it's great to have you join me today, Pat.
Thank you. No, Phil, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love all the stuff you're doing, your content. That's a great job you're doing with that. So I think it's an inspiration for others that are interested in getting into content creation or infosec. So if you
Mhm.
wouldn't mind, start off with just kind of introduce yourself and sharing your background.
Yeah, most definitely. First of all, thank you so much, Phil. I really appreciate you having me on tonight. And a little bit about myself and my background. If you guys don't know, my name is Pat, also known as Infosec Pat in the community. But I started making content pretty much on accident about 4 years ago now, 3.5 years ago. Like I was studying for the PCNSE, which is from Palo Alto to certification, with me and a couple of buddies. And I was configuring like a static route and a site-to-site VPN between two Palo Alto firewalls, and I was putting it up onto like Google Drive and sharing out with my buddies that were studying for the PCNSE. And then one of my friends were like, "Dude, like, why don't you just like post this on YouTube?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing on YouTube." You know what I mean? I barely, and this is the God honest truth, like before I actually made a channel, I never even watched videos on YouTube, right? Like I was never like a YouTube person. Um, yes, I let that out. So I started subscribing to channels about 4 years ago. But so then I started making videos and yeah, and then it snowballed, like I was doing a lot more hacking videos in the beginning, but obviously with the quote unquote with the guidelines and everything of YouTube, you have to be careful. And even if you know, I still don't know till today, like there's so many channels that have pen testing or ethical hacking content up there. And I'm like very, very diligent, right? Hey, we're going to be talking about, for example, my latest video on Wi-Fi. This is a automated pen testing Wi-Fi tool. Like obviously it's not set up now. I had like a lab set up in the back of me. This is the network we're compromising, blah, blah, blah. And I got it taken down in a matter of like 10 minutes, obviously because of AI. So there's pros and cons about making content, right? Because, it can be a lot of work just to set up that little lab, getting my alpha driver installed, getting everything working to even snip the packets took me about an hour, right? Updating all my repositories in my Kali box. And then, I filmed for 20, 30 minutes. And I don't really edit too much because I'm not really good with editing. So I just put it together and upload it. I went to go get a hero or get a sub, came back home, and my video was whacked. So it's like all that hard work is like, oh shoot. But the good thing about it, the flip side of that, like once you start showcasing some of your work, right? People are watching you, no matter what. Like if it's, hey, how to set up a home lab, we can dig deep into that. Hack the box, virtual box, excuse me, try hack me, Vuln Hub machines, whatever you want to learn on. I think that's really critical. And I'm an offensive security professional or whatever. I don't even know what I am. I just do cybersecurity, and I do some blue teaming, purple teaming, red teaming. I do a lot of stuff, but yeah, that's pretty much a little bit of a nutshell, for me.
Very cool. So, one of the things too, as far as people trying to get in industry, there's a lot of listeners and viewers that are trying to get into cybersecurity. So what are your recommendations for someone that wanted to get started in offensive security?
Oh, that's a good question. So I would say everyone has their own journey, right? That's obvious, right? Maybe Phil knew a buddy that, he went to go hack it, something intrigued him. So I can give my story of what happened with me and how I would recommend folks today, because today there's no excuse not to learn, right? When I got into it, there was no hack the box, there's no try hack me's. You have to do your own stuff, but I'll keep it at that. So like when I was doing I was a network engineer, system engineer, cloud engineer, like working with VMware and all that good stuff. And on the side, as a side hustle, I used to sell sneakers. I'm a big sneakerhead. So in my on my PayPal, it got hacked. The Nigerian prince sent me an email. I got phished. Yep, and I was one of them. And I clicked on a link, and boom, they harvest my credentials, and they went into my PayPal. It was like $800 or $900. It wasn't like a whole bunch of money, but 12 years ago, it was a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
So I was studying like multimedia in undergrad because I skateboarded and I like to film and all that stuff. But I transitioned into cyber. I went to my counselor. I was like, hey, like I don't know if this is a field, but I want to understand how this happened, right? How did these credentials get harvested? And that's when I transitioned to cyber. And it was a lot of more theory back then and testing stuff out like in your own environment and setting up like virtual PC. I don't, this is before VirtualBox,
I
VMware.
remember that.
Yeah.
Were you using it before Microsoft acquired it?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then Microsoft acquired virtual PC. And then, yep.
Yeah, it's where all their hypervisor, whatever their virtualization, because they used to have virtual PC and virtual server. I remember that back years ago.
Exactly. And then they went into Hyper-V. Exactly. And and then I just, started my cybersecurity journey. And then, long and behold, and, Hack the Box comes out. So when I was studying for like OSCP, and, that's when Hack the Box, you had to like go find a JS thing and you have to get the code. But meanwhile, you can just go to hackthebox.com/register and you can bypass all of that. Back then, there was a little hack for that. I can reveal it now because, now you can just go sign up for free. But, and then once I got in, starting doing, the Hack the Box platform, and it just started from there. So in 2023, fast forward, right? I would obviously, there's so many free resources, on the internet, on YouTube. There's so many content creators like yourself, John Hammett, Heath Adams. There's so many other, Hackersploit, Zed Security, so many other content creators that you can learn for free on YouTube. And then if you want to get into like, some training, like paid training and certifications, you can go for a PMPT, EJPT. And what is the junior one? EJ or P?
I think it's PJPT. Yeah.
So that's a track you can do. And I think the difference between those two is the PJPT is more internal. So you're inside the network already, and then you have to compromise AD. And then the PMPT is from the external. Then you pivot yourself, get into the firewall. I don't know. I never took those exams, but that's just from the theory of what they explained. And, if you're not on a budget, obviously OSCP and, EJPT, or I forgot, there's so many acronyms, I forget. And so that's, Try Hack Me is a good one. But I'm a big believer, and this is what something that resonates and clicks better with me, is when I set up my own lab, right? Set up my own AD, because then I understand how the network is traversing. How is the network set up behind the scenes? And I think there's that connection of the dots. And what do I mean by that? Like when I studied for CCNP and, the Cisco tracks, if you're just studying for like configuring routers, but if you didn't have a rack and you had to click and, you use your TY. Oh my God, the lines, the whatever the lines are that you telnet into, SSH into, and TTY lines. I think there's TTY lines. And I feel like when you're just studying and you're just getting like GNS3 or EVE-NG back then, I just always felt like there was a disconnect when when, there's the virtual environment versus the actual, physical environment. So yeah, that's pretty much, what I would suggest these days.
Yeah, it's interesting too. One of the things I wanted to get your take on too is how important do you think certifications are to land a job in cybersecurity?
Oh, that's a good one. Uh, I think it's definitely a gatekeeper. It's definitely gonna get it all depends on. I think this is at least from my opinion. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You've probably been doing this a lot longer than I have. I believe in this industry, sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. And just like networking, going to conferences, going to little local meetups, joining Discord servers, and just networking with folks, because you may not be the best offensive security person, you might not be the best defensive security, but if you have a good attitude, technology can be learned. Someone can teach you that, but if you don't have that attitude, you're fucked. You know what I mean? Like you're screwed. So that's what I think is super, super critical. Have a positive attitude and just be positive, right? And so certifications, obviously, it's a good, it's a good place holder on your resume that's saying, okay, I can accomplish, I have the skill set of starting something and finishing something. But like I always say, like when I was in grad school, I did the CEH, CHFI, LPT, and ECSA from EC Console. When I did my CEH, I didn't know shit.
Mhm.
It just meant I can, like study and pass 125, 150 question exam. You know, Now they have the CEH master that's, because everyone's going that hands-on route.
Yeah.
But back when I did it, it was like 11 years ago now. And I still didn't know anything when I got my CEH. When I did my CHFI, that was a little different because that's more forensics and getting into the tools. And the LPT, that was obviously a little more hairier. But yeah, so I think the certifications are definitely worth it. Uh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you too, as far as getting your foot in the door. They're important, but also too, like you said, the networking thing. That's the thing that's been huge, and definitely want to make sure to to talk about it since I'm thinking about it. It's just like the past several years, and when I look at all my cybersecurity career, there are only a few jobs that I got, one or two, maybe three at the most, that I've gotten that were just from applying for jobs, that it wasn't because I knew someone. And you see people out there like Michael Patrick. I trying to think of his handle, but he was going through a lot of the INE stuff, the e-learn security content, and got that, and ended up getting CVEs. But really, what helped him a lot was the networking, and even if you get all the certs, have all the qualifications, sometimes it's hard to kind of bypass that HR firewall.
Exactly, and that's why, you know, every position, probably like the last three positions, it's just through someone I know, right? And I didn't really have to. Yeah, you have to apply just because you need it in the cabinet of HR, just because your information. But I didn't have to go through the hoops and go through 16,000 things to like get a job. So,
Mhm.
but obviously for the noobs that totally new to the industry, number one is networking. And when you send a request to myself or Phil or any other person that maybe you saw on the internet, and you're like, oh, well, let's connect with on LinkedIn or Twitter, etc. Not so much Twitter, but like because Twitter is just a follow. Like if you're going to connect with me on LinkedIn and you're asking a question, come out with a purpose. No, I'm like, hey, I need help with this. I want to go tell you to kick rocks with your shoes off. You know what I mean? Like, be more presentable. You know what I mean? Like approachable as well. Like, be there with a purpose, not just trying to get a handout. So
Yeah, that's good advice, because a lot of times you get those messages from people, and I know you're probably the same way. You want to help people, but when someone the first message they send you is just hi, and it's just like word at a time and not coming in. The ones I love is someone that, I'm so and so. I've got my security plus. I want to be a pen tester. I'm doing try hack me and this and this and this. What should I do? And come in with some context. What their background is, and you can kind of nudge them because you've got an idea of what their background is, what they want to do, what they've already accomplished. And it's easier to help someone out than someone that gives you minimal. information, because a lot of times people that they're reaching out to are super busy and they don't have time to drag it out of them. They're going through a bunch of DMs and trying to answer questions and don't have time for that stuff.
Exactly, exactly. Because I get a lot of DMs on LinkedIn, on even on Instagram. You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty active on Instagram, and it's like you get these people that if they watch my video and it's like, oh, I need help with X, Y, Z. Like I tell them, I'm very honest. Like when I do a video from a year ago, I don't remember what I did.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That's the God honest truth. So if anyone on this stream has watched my videos and asked me how I did that a year and a half ago, I'm gonna have to watch the video again myself and relearn it, because that's one thing. Transparency. I'll be honest. Like if I'm learning or if I'm doing a box, unless I'm going live with the box, which I get like extreme anxiety, but like I'll go through that box maybe once, maybe even twice. So I'm not on a damn video for like an hour and a half while I'm banging my head. Right. So don't think I'm some genius that I'm going through these boxes like like hotcakes. It's not true. Like I I do the box once or twice, and if it's a try, I just don't submit the flags. You know what I mean? Like because then it loses the because when I do the video, I want to showcase that okay, like we submitted the flags together. But yeah, I'm just gonna from full transparency. That's what I do, and yeah, I don't know why I got on that topic, but yeah.
I think that's an important fact to share, because when someone sees someone, and that's one of the things that I hear feedback on, like when IPSec does walkthroughs, sometimes he goofs up and then he figures it out. And I've seen some others that do that. I think it's important that that information is shared, because if you see these perfect polished videos of someone who walks without a hitch, people will think, wow, how do I get that good? And they'll realize that in fact, everyone's going through, either you may type something wrong, or you do some certain command or use a certain tool that may not work. You have to use something else. And so I think that's important that people see that and realize this is not like Instagram. Everything's perfect. When there's things screw up, and when you do mess up, that's learning opportunities. You can learn from mistakes. You do something wrong. If everything goes perfect at the beginning, once you run into something more difficult, it's going to be hard. So when you do mess up, it's kind of a good learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. Because like I said, like I you know, doing it in the real world as a pen tester or as a ethical hacker, when you do these CTFs, it's a totally different mindset. And I don't think people realize that. That's why I've mentioned many times in my podcasts or getting together with folks, like I never liked CTFs, right? I never, because it's like, yeah, the objective is to find the flag, but it's like, how often you're gonna go get a base 64, go to CyberChef, decrypt this, go to this. You know what I mean? Like 99% of the pen tests, you just call a person, get their credentials, and get in their network. That's besides the point. But sometimes it's doing a real pen test is a lot easier than a CTF, at least in my opinion. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think a pen test is more straightforward and less difficult. I mean, some of the things I see some advantages with the CTF, if someone's just learning, you're going to college or something, or trying to learn some of the stuff that you would learn with some of the decoding and that type of stuff could be helpful. But
Mhm.
yeah, you're not going to typically do those things on a pen test. I agree.
Yeah, no, I just like to throw that out there because people are like, oh, I want to be like you said, I want to become a pen tester. I did try hack me, and I'm a hacker, elite hacker, but they don't know how to write a report. They don't know how to put together, screenshots, and that's why even lately I've been slacking when I do the CTS, but normally I guess more when I'm studying for a cert. If I'm doing a CTF, I like to take screenshots, put into Cherry Tree, like document my process, because that's the way you actually do it when you're doing a pen test, right? And you have your whatever your template, and you just do your copy and pasting for whatever client, and you just you make sure you document your process, so you can, when you debrief to the client, you can show them your successes and non-successes, where they are good with their defenses and where they're rubbish.
Yeah, I think that's good information too. You're talking about the report writing and stuff. People can do write-ups on some different CTFs and stuff they've done to kind of showcase to show employers, because we're living in a time when used to it was only like artists and graphics designers that needed a portfolio, but now it's kind of becoming important, especially for people just starting out, to have some kind of portfolio, some, uh, some blog posts they've written, some content in GitHub, maybe some walkthrough videos and so on.
Exactly. And that's why, like, if you're starting out too, like, take me as an example. Like, if you look at my YouTube videos, I'm no expert at YouTube, right? I know what I'm trying to showcase, but I don't do any fancy. I'm no network chuck doing fancy designs. And, I'm just press record, showcase a thing, press record again, it stops recording, and then upload. So, say for example, you are in the job market, right? You're a year in or whatever, and you know, do a little screen recording. You don't have to showcase your face. You know what I mean? Use
Yeah.
OBS and just showcase and put that in a little Google Drive. And when you apply, just share that Google Drive link with your employee and say, okay, this is what I've done. This is how your methodology and your thought process, right? And they'll appreciate that, and I've done it, right? I just showcased that. And this was years ago, but then obviously I made my YouTube channel. Now they can just see that, you know, I think I know what I'm doing a little bit, but like, I think showcasing your work is definitely critical these days. Like you said, GitHub and all that jazzy jazz.
Yeah, the cool thing about it is too, when you kind of look at it, when you're competing with someone else and you're on a level playing field, if you can provide that type of information, that's a little bit extra. So they can rule, they could pick you over the other person because they've got a better idea of what your skill set's like. Otherwise, they're just seeing resumes, seeing your certifications, any kind of education stuff, work history, and that's all they see. But when you're providing that extra information, like some videos, GitHub information, maybe even some write-ups and stuff, you're giving them a little bit extra, because it's a big filtering exercise starting out. They're just going through automatically. For instance, if it requires someone to be located in a certain country to do that job, automatically you can eliminate those resumes. If they require a certain certification or uh, degree level, automatically the people don't have that you're able to filter that out. So it's just kind of a good way to display your skills. And one of the things too I've seen is people present at our local DEF CON group, our Dallas DEF CON group. There was someone that's presenting there. It was a recent college grad. They did a presentation on malware analysis, and they demonstrated how they did all this stuff. And a hiring manager for Citibank or Citigroup was in the audience, saw it, asked for the resume, and they got a job.
Sweet. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, like I said in the beginning of the chat, right? In the beginning of the stream, like, you never know who's watching,
Mhm.
right? And that's why, like, there's always eyes on you, right? Like, no matter what you think, like, look, I'll say something like, tomorrow I'm going to be going live with someone that I've been watching since the very, very beginning. His name is Keith Barker, right? Like, this guy was like my mentor, and he didn't even know he was my mentor, right? Like, I just watched his videos on CBT Nuggets. And this is, when I went through my CCNP security, CCDP, and the CCDP was him and Jeremy Chara, and they're from CBT Nuggets. I don't know if Jeremy's working there anymore, but yeah. So it's like, and years later, fast forward, and I think it was like 2019, and I guess he was watching some of my videos that I was putting out, and he just reached out and said, "Hey, like, would you like to be on my channel?" Right? And I was like, "Whoa, that's like Michael." If you're a big basketball fan, like Michael Jordan reached out to you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a Jordan fan,
Mhm.
like, he was like my, like, whoa, you know. So I was like, "Whoa, this is," and now I can call the dude my friend. You know what I mean? So you never know who's watching. You never know who's going to come across your life. So never be like, one thing about me, like, I'm super approachable. I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. That's how I grew up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if someone has 1 million subscribers on their YouTube and I have 40,000, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Mhm.
care how big, or, the ego, like, if your ego's up the wazoo, I'm not going to get along with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so that's, super, super, stay humble and just never know, you never know who's watching, and just keep an open mind. You know what I mean? Because your mentor might be watching you, and that person might be reaching out to you. You don't even know.
Yeah. It's a good point. So what are some other, like, we're talking about, mentioned some things about content creation. So what about brand building? What are some things people can do outside of the videos or some other things? Because, you can create the videos, you can create the content, but is there any advice you have for someone building their personal brand?
I want to tell you, I'm still trying to learn that, right? In the like the Infosec Pat, right? So I started obviously with my YouTube channel, and then I made a few little things like these little stickers. Like I bring them at conferences. I made these little stickers, um, and that's and then I made some shirts, and then like this was something I started get
Mhm.
jacked or get hacked, right? Obviously, I I work out. I like fitness, so it's like, but it was not about going to get jacked at the gym or you're going to get hacked on your computer, right? So this brand or this slogan or whatever you want to call it, it was more about getting off your chair, off your computer, and just walk around the block, go to the park, do some pull-ups, whatever. If you want to go to the gym, it was more that if you don't get jacked or if you don't, feed your body nutrients, you don't feed, your mental health, your body's going to get compromised, right? It's going to get hacked,
Mhm.
cancer, diabetes, gut, any of those sicknesses, right? So with that brand or this little slogan, like literally, like I just thought about it, put this little, put a t-shirt on, made a few t-shirts, and I started giving them out at the conferences. Like I went to B-side Orlando about 2, 3 weeks ago, and I made about 10 shirts, and I gave it to a couple friends here, and then I just gave them out, and it took off. Like literally, like I made this little video the other day or last week or whatever. Like, hey, because I got a lot of inquiries on it. Like, where can I get the shirt? Obviously, it's not in the store. You know what I mean? It's like I have to go order it for you. So I was like, oh, and now it's getting to the point like it was a lot of manual stuff. Right? I had to put the address in and I have to do it manually. Now it's getting too hard, and like now I have to find something like to do drop shipping, right? Because I'm
Mhm.
not going to be able to handle the load anymore. It's like 48 people asked me yesterday for one. You know what I mean? It's like I don't have time to sit here and put 48 fucking addresses in and to collect 48
Yeah.
payments of Zelle, you know? So what I'm doing is just that, like just networking and just have a little something, even if you're broke as a joke. Like I'm not no millionaire, but like I I guess like I would dedicate whatever, a couple $100 and like I got some mugs, I got some merch, like so it's just like little giving back to the community. And once your like little thing is known, and if they're, if you're a follower or subscriber or supporter, you'll be surprised of like what they want to, you know, be a part of your community, right? If it's a little mug
Mhm.
that like CVT Nuggets, like one like TCM Security. I have a little shot glass there, like just showcases their like I'm supporting them, right? And they're just grateful to have us as supporters, and they're just going to give a little give back to the community as well. So that's what my recommendation is. I'm no brand ambassador. I don't know if I don't
Yeah.
know too much about it, but that's what I did.
But you know something, you're learning something from it because it's just those little things that people remember you by. And that's one of the things that I share my former pro wrestling background and bear wrestling experience because people remember that they won't forget you. I ran into one of my friends from Dallas Hackers Association when we were first met each other. My daughter and I was at the movie theater and we were coming out, and this guy comes up and introduces my wife, says, "Hey, that's Phil. He wrestles bears." And so just anything like that for people to remember, these catchy handles and different things like the Cyber Mentor, that's easy to remember. When I was teaching at Dallas College, I got the domain name The Hacker Maker. And where that came from was there used to be the old Dunkin' Donuts commercial, and the baker was going to the store to make the donuts each day, and he'd tell his wife when he's leaving, "I'm going to make the donuts." So I'd tell my wife when I was going off to teach pen testing, I'd say, "I got to go make the hackers." So I came up with the domain name, The Hacker Maker, and it just kind of stuck. So it was an easy way for people to find my domain name. The college that I was teaching at, their registration system was the same one I used in 2001. You can't search on it. You have to have the numbers and the section information to put in there. And I want to make it easy for people to find my class. So I put it on a website to make it easier for them. And I knew the Hacker Maker would be easier to remember than philipwiley.com.
Yeah.
And so just those little things that you do sometimes you don't realize that are catchy, the stickers, the different logos and stuff, the different graphics. And
Hmm.
speaking of lifting thing, people are going to remember you because they know you lift and stuff. And
Exactly.
speaking of that, we got August joining us today. This dude is a strong son of a gun. I met him at DEF CON last year. He's a power lifter and a big guy. So that dude can throw around some iron. So yeah.
And yeah, and speaking of that, that's funny because when we were at DEF CON, I had like, when we're in line to get our badges, and like when we're talking, we're just sitting down. I'm like 6'2". I'm
Mhm.
pretty tall, right? And yeah, like when just one guy was like, "Hey, can we arm wrestle?" And I'm like, "Arm wrestle? What do you mean arm wrestle, dude?" Like, and I never really arm wrestled. Like, I know I'm pretty strong, but so I realized, and that's another thing that I'm probably gonna throw into like get hacked to get jacked. Maybe like because I've been arm wrestling now
Mhm.
for like 3 months, and I never, experienced how strong I really am. Because lifting, like I beat people that deadlift 500 pounds, bench 400 pounds, and they couldn't move my arm.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you'll be surprised on going outside your comfort zone and just like whatever, like this, like arm wrestling. Like I didn't realize how how strong I was. And now like this is a little movement that I'm trying to do local. Like, okay, like let's get these more on the get jacked to get hacked, getting someone out of their seat. You don't have to be like super, super good arm wrestler, but just to get out and just go to the gym or just like, do techniques to arm wrestle and just, I don't know. So I think like if I go to DEF CON or when anyone ever sees me at any conference, uh, like August, like let's arm wrestle. Let's see how good I am. I am 31-0. I haven't been beaten. So, and I'm not that big, but my arms are pretty solid.
Yeah, I used to get challenged a lot back in my bouncer days when I was a pro wrestler. My main job was a bouncer, and so I'd have people always come in a nightclub wanting to arm wrestle me. So
That's awesome.
stuff can
That's
be painful too, man. That
Oh
can be
yeah, it takes a
yeah,
lot of like like on your elbow
yeah.
and your bicep. You know what I mean? Like you don't really
Oh
realize,
yeah.
and your forearms. Like so, it's pretty much all your forearm, like and your wrist. Like, and I have
Mhm.
skinny wrists. Like I don't have, but it's all like on the technique. Like that's
Yeah.
literally all it is. It's not
It
about
is.
how much
Yeah,
you
there's
can
some
lift.
serious technique because I've seen some guys that, lifting wise, they weren't that strong, but they just really had the technique down.
Yep.
Being really fast with it and knowing how to really leverage using your body weight into it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's all it is. Like you literally have 10 to 20 seconds you know, to really do it because you're going to gas out, right?
Mhm.
So it's all about like literally the first couple seconds, just smash them. Because if you don't get smashed, even if it stays like, center, someone's
Yeah.
going to give in, right? You can only
Yep.
hold your stuff so long. So yeah, it's pretty fun to do. So now that's my little new hobby. Let's go arm
Oh,
wrestle.
very cool. So, let's see what we're gonna so why don't we answer some questions here? I usually keep the podcast to around 30 minutes or so, but let's get some questions from some of the folks in the audience here. So someone's asking, why are there so many companies asking for bachelor's degrees now? Actually, you cannot continue a job application if the college is not listed.
That's interesting. Where are you located, if you don't mind me asking? Because I never seen that. Like, I never seen unless you like applying for like I would say Deloitte, KPMG, PCW. They're probably the only companies that will verify and call the school and make sure you have that bachelor's degree. Any other company that because like because I know those companies, I know people that work there and stuff like that. But as far as like a small, medium-sized company, I don't want to say mom and pop, like a private owner, you're never going to be asked to.
Yeah.
I've never been asked to see my master's degree, or like a degree. That's
It could be something new because I remember several years ago, because it's so hard to find security people, that some of the big four quit requiring a 4-year degree because there's people out there with talent that didn't necessarily have the bachelor's degree, but they needed people right away. So I'd say it depends on the company. I don't think everyone is looking for that because honestly, I can show you some people out there that are you would in a lot of cases find better talent with people with some certifications than you would uh, just the degrees itself. So he said that he's in
Dallas.
Dallas, Texas. Okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see because I'm actually in Dallas too. So it'd be interesting to see. But that could be like on a case by case basis. But that's interesting that they don't let you progress with the application without putting a college in there. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that's what when we were talking about prior, like it's not what you know, it's who you know. So maybe start networking, maybe try to, you know, bypass that firewall, right? Do a little
Yeah.
sneaky thing.
Yeah. Cause you can get that resume to the hiring manager, that
Exactly.
you're not filling out that online form. So someone else had a question, said, what would you recommend to people? Someone has a friend only on LinkedIn to get into IT. So if there's someone getting into IT that's only on LinkedIn, I know the majority of my network people do not respond when I am looking for a job. What is the best strategy to get a job in IT?
Hmm. So that's a good question. Uh, I guess it's like, are you new to the field? Are you new on LinkedIn? Right? Because you always have to start somewhere. Like literally, like I said, like when I started using LinkedIn properly, it was like 3 years ago. And now I'm like at like almost 21,000 followers. So, I think it all depends on how long you've been in, looking for a job. So would you recommend who people has sex? And to get into IT, the majority of them might not work. People don't respond. So yeah, so I was gonna make a joke. Get those people out of your network, but yeah, I'm just messing with you. But the best strategy I would say to get into any IT job, right? This all boils down to like showcase. Like if you're getting into IT, not cyber, build a home lab. VirtualBox, VMware Workstation. Player if you don't have money. You know what I mean? If you broke as a joke like me, use Player and just download eval like Windows Server 2022, Windows 11, Windows 10, join to the domain. And I have videos in my channel that showcases all Windows Server 2019, 2023, 2022, and like Cisco training and networking, and then go ahead and look at like KevTech IT. A lot of
Mhm.
stuff he has like entry level help desk and service desk type stuff, like low level sysadmin stuff. And maybe he'll be a better resource for that. And connect with him on LinkedIn, and maybe hit him up and see if he can guide you. So hopefully that's good.
Yeah, only thing I would add to that is, LinkedIn is not the only place to network because it is definitely a good place. You definitely want to optimize that, but one of the areas you'll get even more success out of is networking in person. So go
Hmm.
to some different user groups. Like here in Dallas, we're fortunate enough on the security side of things. We've got an ISSA group, we got an OWASP chapter, we've got a couple DEF CON groups in the area, several other opportunities like a ISC squared organization. So finding these different user groups and meetups a good place to look for those. So meet people in person, go to conferences, these meetups, and that's going to help you there because one of the things you'll see, it's easier to help someone if you know them in person, you've talked to them. So if you're a hiring manager, you talk to someone, you get a good idea for their communication skills, their soft skills, and just getting to know them. Because when I was teaching at Dallas College, I used to find a bunch of people looking for entry level pen testers. But because I was heavily involved in the community, I was constantly meeting people that were like recent college graduates. I knew they wanted to be pen testers. So when people asked me for some pen testers that would be junior level or entry level, I would throw in some of these other resumes from people too that I know from the community because I knew their skill set. I knew what they did because they're presenting at the group, they're talking to people, and you get a good idea of what their knowledge is. Sometimes people aren't really populating their LinkedIn well enough, and then there's so much you can do, especially if you're new and just starting out. But I would leverage the in-person opportunities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's definitely good. So Ryan, maybe creating their own boxes might be a good practice for understanding the internals abilities. For example, someone who wants to learn SQL injection, So they'll build their own boxes to help them understand different ways application is vulnerable to. Yeah, you can just use Juice Shop. Why would you? I don't know. That's just my opinion on that one,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm not going to go out and build my own thing and knock myself over the head when there's, so many vulnerable machines out there already. But yeah, you phrased that pretty well. There's Juice Shop. If you want to learn more about web apps, like you said, like OWASP, and yeah, Juice Shop is pretty good. And there's probably
Yeah.
other SQL injection boxes on Hack the Box and etc. But I stay away from that because I'm not an application guy.
Yeah, there's some stuff that's even easier, like Damn Vulnerable Web App that
Mhm.
takes you through some very basics, and Buggy Web App. They're a little less complex, and there's some more easier levels to it. So some of those are good options there. Portswigger Web Application Security Academy, they've got like whole sections on SQL injection. So not only do you have labs online to test your skills and practice the different techniques, you also got some content around that type of attack.
Mhm.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, so we're getting down towards the end of the show. Is there anything you'd like to share or mention before we close out this episode?
No, I really, from everyone that was joining in from LinkedIn, YouTube, I think Twitch, I saw a few, the hacker. Oh, that was the hacker
That's me.
maker. Dang, I'm late. Sure, like Matt, I think Phil probably taught us on his YouTube channel. So,
Yes.
feel free to holler at, watch that after. But no,
Yep.
I just want to say thank you so much. It was an awesome, conversation. If anyone wants to connect with me, I'm pretty much Infosec Pat at anywhere. Like, if you have any questions for me, you can connect with me. I'm Patrick Gorman, obviously on LinkedIn. And yeah, just feel free to holler at me and I can answer whatever I can. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining. I appreciate you taking the time. It's been great chatting with you. And for those tuning in, we'll also be sharing the show notes. We'll have Pat's social media information in there, his YouTube channel. We'll have that later on when the show notes are added to it. But after we're done with the recording here, you'll be able to access it on YouTube because it records there, but also be publishing to all the different podcast platforms too. If Spotify or something like that's more your game, it'll be up there soon. So thanks everyone for joining us on this live episode. This was, I think, was only like the third one, but we plan to do more. We're about to wrap up season 2. I've got all the recordings for the rest of the year out there. I try to kind of record so many at a time, so that way I don't ever get caught to where I've got to hurry up, find a guest, and record something right away. I've done that before, so that, and I try to make my December easy, because all the conferences and stuff going on, plus the podcast, you really just kind of need some downtime. So I'd really set things up so December is not much going on. I can rest and then get ready to get back at it in January.
Yep. That's a good point. Yeah. And yeah, again, thank you so much. And don't forget to subscribe to Phil's channel.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're
And
doing big things. So keep it up. Thank you.
and just to kind of plug too, I'll be joining Pat tomorrow.
No,
Is
no,
that
no,
tomorrow?
not tomorrow.
Oh,
Tomorrow's Keith. Next week.
I got you next week, the week after that. So yeah. So
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you in the next episode.